Good evening and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Wednesday night, the 21st of April, 2021. Joe Rayo on my left, and I'm Joe Chaffee, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show is proudly brought to you by... Oh, I did it again. Hang on a second. It just is amazing.
It's proudly brought to you by Omni True Value.
Yes, Omni
and
True Value.
Holiday
And wholesale
holiday lighting by
Giannini. Giannini.
Yes.
No, first off, it's
Giannini.
Right. It's Omni True Value Hardware. They've got mulch and plenty of it, and they are in different colors too, and they make it there at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. So get your dump truck over there, whether you are an individual or if you're a landscaper putting somebody else's yard together, and get your supplies at Omni True Value Hardware. The telephone number is 631-756-1125. They have the best prices in town, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. Also brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, 631-957-5106. And here too, if you're getting your home decorated or you want to do this for a business, give them a call, and the website is liholidaylighting.com. So I actually saved, Joe, the radar out of Upton to watch the loop of the showers that actually developed this morning, the first round that popped up. You know, sometimes when you get those first round showers, that was probably the warm sector setting up. So occasionally they do rob the atmosphere, making it more stable in their wake, but didn't work this time around. The atmosphere was very unstable afterward, and you can see that squall line that developed. I think the models that advertised the stronger squall lines, like the NAM3, did a better job handling this. The HRRR model actually picked up on this earlier today, and so did SPC, because they went to a slight risk this morning, which we talked about last night.
You know, Joe, we also said that the NAM and the HRRR yesterday was highlighting or red flagging around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And meanwhile, the GFS was noticeably faster, saying the squall would come through, let's say, around 1. So I get if you split everything down the middle between what the GFS was advertising and what the NAM was advertising, 2:30, that pretty much nailed it right on the head, because that was the time frame when I think at 2:30 this afternoon, we were right in the middle of all of this storminess. The rains came down very hard here locally. I thought I perhaps glimpsed a little bit of pea-sized hail, but Renata says it was more likely some of the tree buds that were coming down, and they certainly came down. A lot got blown around with the squall. Although we did get reports from Yonkers and other parts of the Hudson Valley of little bit of hail, and even though we said yesterday that this was not likely to be a tornadic type of producer, there was still a tornado warning that went out across portions of Dutchess County to my north, and eventually spilled over into parts of northwestern Connecticut. So it turned out to be a very active day. Initially it looked like everything was going to be, rather modest for any kind of severe weather, but as it sometimes turns out, things got a little bit more robust as opposed to what the models were suggesting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that happened this morning after that first band of showers went by, that the winds went from being south to southwest, so that kind of diminishing the input of the south wind. And the bottom line is that the upper trough here was fairly impressive. I think if you didn't have the strength of that upper trough and the very, very cold air that was aloft, you probably would have seen these cells weaken as they moved eastward. The other thing that was impressive too, Joe, was to see the big spread in temperatures, temperatures up close to 70 ahead of the front, and just a handful of miles away on the other side, temperatures were in the 30s. So that's a pretty good range. That's a pretty solid spread there over a relatively short distance to help in the development of these storms. And on the latest radar, when they moved over Long Island, the western part of Long Island, they were stronger than they were in the east. And now on the wide radar view, and this is this is probably about 30 minutes old. I'm not going to refresh it at this point, but you can see that the cells just kind of weakened a bit as they moved a little bit further to the east. So you got it here on the peak intensity into western Massachusetts, northern Connecticut, and points north and east, seeing some showers on up through Maine. Of course, on the back side, change over to snow. And there's snow showers on the radar down to West Virginia, Kentucky, back over through parts of Indiana and around the lower lakes. So that upper, the whole upper trough here just dominating the weather in the eastern part of the United States. Should also point out, by the way, that the Astros tonight are playing in Denver. And there's a patch of snow that developed right over Denver during the mid and late our mid and late afternoon. And I was watching, saw a friend of mine post on Facebook that he was at the game. He was at the stadium, and it was coming down pretty good over there. I don't know if they're getting the game in or not, but a little patch more snow there up for northern Colorado. They're not done with winter yet out there in the west.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure either whether or not that game got held up or postponed. You say it was in Denver, and I'm looking here on MLB.com to see if what do they do? Blah 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 blah. I don't see that game, Joe. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Astros and Rockies. The Rockies apparently won 6-3.
Oh, so they did.
And I guess they played all 9. And they did play all 9 innings. Yeah.
Unreal. Unreal. David Fuller just hitting super chat. Thank you, David. Most appreciated as always. Big hello to everybody that's on the chat board tonight. Somebody just pointed this out. You were just talking about that tornado warning for Dutchess, and then also for Litchfield County. That Litchfield County wound up going from that tornado warning to seeing snow 2 hours later. That's something you don't see very often.
Well, here at the home base, the temperature dropped 23 degrees in less than 2 hours. We peaked at like 1:20 in the afternoon at 69 degrees. I might also point out, Joe, that I knew I was in trouble because the sun broke through from time to time during the late morning and early afternoon. So we had 69 degrees, and then about 10 minutes after 3, after all of the violent weather moved on by, I looked at the thermometer again. It was down to 46. So 23 degrees in less than 2 hours. That's a pretty darn good drop in temperature.
That was Mark G, by the way, pointing out what happened in Litchfield County today. Oh, and by the way, I put up the map of the warnings that are up tonight. This is pretty unusual to see so many areas in the Midwest and in the South under either a freeze advisory or a freeze warning. And of course, right as we were talking about this last night, Joe, shortly after 8 o'clock, they put up. They must have been listening to us because they put up the freeze warning, and SBC was listening too because they moved it up to a slight risk, and we're happy to help.
Yes.
We're happy to help. By the way, I think you'll get a kick out of this. So I'm going to pull up, because I'm in Northeast Georgia right now, and it was a cold day here. It was in the 40s all day. A lot of clouds this morning that went to mostly sunny skies, but we had a wind advisory up. Now, initially, when I read the wind advisory, I'm going to see if they change this at all. The wind advisory is still up until 10 o'clock tonight, but when they first put it up and I looked at it this morning, the wind advisory, I know it's still reading the same way. Wind advisory here, also the freeze warning, sub-freezing temperatures down to near 30. That's what they're forecasting for me here tomorrow morning. So I had to bring some of my plants in that I have outside. The wind advisory was for northwest winds at 10 to 15 miles an hour with gusts to 30. So the criteria here is a little lower than it is up in the Northeast. But I will tell you, it was not 10 to 15 here. It was every bit of 20 to 25 sustained, and there were gusts, definitely up into the 30s, if that helps. I just got a kick out of seeing a wind advisory of northwest winds at 10 to 15 miles an hour. And I like the impacts. They say gusty winds could blow around unsecured objects, tree limbs blown down, power outages may result. Frost and freeze conditions will, well, this is a little more serious now. Frost and freeze conditions will kill crops, other sensitive vegetation, and possibly damage unprotected outdoor plumbing.
Well,
The threshold of pain is here is a little bit lower than it is up in the Northeast.
well, if you get the temperatures down, to around freezing up here, I'll say, well, then it's either in late fall or at this time of the year, early spring. You debate. You say to yourself, well, should I turn the water off, to avoid freezing the pipes? It will get down to or even below freezing, but for a relatively short time, we should recover back up into the 40s tomorrow during the afternoon. But I mean, if you're concerned about that, you just might want to turn off your water to avoid any freezing water in those pipes.
I mean, if it was down, if it was going down to 20 or less and staying there, I would, I'd be a little more concerned.
Oh, absolutely.
But
absolutely,
yeah. I mean, tomorrow, once the sun, once we get past sun up by a couple hours, the temperatures should jump past 30, over the freezing mark fairly quickly. But we've got. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What would Tom Grant say? What would Tom Grant say about all this?
He would say landlords are advised to keep heat up during such extreme conditions. God bless him, Tom Grant. We love you. Retired National Weather Service New York forecaster. So you see the freeze warnings. Also some winter weather advisories in a few counties well up into upstate New York, northernmost Vermont, northernmost New Hampshire, northernmost Maine. But the freeze warnings go down through the Carolinas and into northeast Georgia, across Tennessee. It varies. In some places it's a warning, some places it's an advisory. The whole state of Missouri, all of Illinois, Indiana, southern Wisconsin, well, no, not in Wisconsin, and half of Michigan, all under freeze warnings. Oddly enough, there are no other warnings other than that wind advisory that's up for much of Georgia. But the rest of the country is actually fairly quiet at the moment. The severe weather threat today was just in the Northeast. And in fact, as we take a look, I'll go to right to, let's get SPC's view of all of this. Even before we do that, take a look at the upper air. We showed you this yesterday, and you see how that jet just kind of amplifies over Pennsylvania, and it did during this afternoon, and then swung to the east. So this was where really the support from this upper trough was very strong. And of course, you had a lot of instability. SPC talked about the lapse rates, which is the decrease in temperature with height, was very steep. So that helped the cause as well. And now, of course, this upper trough is going to very, very slowly inch eastward. There's a little reinforcement jet that's coming down during tomorrow in the Great Lakes. And that's going to eventually ride its way through Pennsylvania and New Jersey. This is why I'm thinking there'll probably be some occasional bouts of cloud cover until we can get this whole thing to just sort of pull out. And that's probably not going to happen until later on Friday. So next 2 days are going to have a very early spring feel to it.
Indeed. And isn't that the month of April is just like that? I mean, you'll go the pendulum. A lot of people talk about March being the crazy month, but April just as crazy, where you can go from very warm conditions one day to cold. And look, we're seeing reports here of not only cold but also some snow, some light accumulations up in the high terrain areas. So yeah, that's what April is all about, folks. And indeed.
Johnny Quest hit super chat tonight. Thank you, Johnny. Nice to see you on board. And Chuck Cardillo in the snow capital of the world in the Catskills, 2.5 inches of snow today. So he had some cleanup to do there. One thing about this time of year, though, is that it usually disappears rather quickly, thankfully. So it'll be gone before too long. If you didn't show, I know, Chuck, you probably cleared it, but if you hadn't, it'll probably disappear awfully fast. By the way, note here on this upper air that what's in the southwest, because this is the next trough in the southern stream that's going to be moving eastward, and that will amplify with another trough that's coming down from the north and phase to bring rain here this weekend. But before it does that, not tomorrow, but Friday and Saturday, Friday in the southern plains, and then on Saturday, the risk for severe weather is going to spread eastward. So it's going to be another event across the deep south with respect to showers and thunderstorms and severe weather. SPC on their forecast outlook, we'll take a look at that. And we are, of course, with what's left of today, the risk zones are pretty much done. There's still a slight risk indicated in eastern New England, and this map will be updated shortly. So for the most part, it's pretty much done now. And moving on to tomorrow, there's no severe weather being indicated in their forecast for Thursday into Friday, just a few pockets of general thunderstorms. And then we'll start on Friday. And of course, SPC advertised this on the long range, a rather large area of slight risk in central and east Texas, much of Louisiana into south central Mississippi. The marginal risk extends a little bit further, both to the east and to the west of the slight risk, and also to the north of the slight risk, pushing up into northern Oklahoma. I wouldn't be shocked if we wind up seeing an enhanced risk appear on this when we get to Friday. And then on Saturday, SPC has a, whoops, I skipped it. I'm sorry. Let me just roll back. Okay, so this was the day 3 right now is Friday into Saturday. So, because today is day 1. So this is Friday into Saturday. And now on the day 4 to 8 outlook, on day 4, which is Saturday into Sunday morning, SPC has a 15% risk from southeastern Louisiana, much of southern and central Mississippi, southern and central Alabama, southern and central Georgia, into South Carolina, and including the Florida Panhandle. And here, too, I would not be at all surprised if we wind up seeing a little area of enhanced risk pop up when we get a bit closer.
And it looks like, Joe, we are going to have a few days actually, of rather tranquil weather. What do you think about, I mean, maybe obviously not for New York City or Long Island, but I think for parts of the Hudson Valley tomorrow, with the way the winds will be gusting out of the northwest, that any snow shower or flurry activity that is in and around the Great Lakes, 1 or 2 of those may be blown as far south as the Hudson Valley, the lower Hudson Valley. And I'm not going to be surprised if, mid or late afternoon tomorrow, I see a few snowflakes in the air. That's not going to amount to anything, but, I wouldn't totally rule out the possibility of seeing a little flaky weather in that chilly and windy and unstable air mass that'll be over us tomorrow.
Or maybe some grapple, because that happened in the last cold shot, what was it, a week or so ago? Some folks reported grapple on the next day. The upper air is very cold. The upper air, if you matched it up, having an upper air like we have right now, if you have it back in January and February, you'd probably be talking about temperatures that be in the 20s all day. But being that this is April, the low levels of the atmosphere, even in the coldest air masses, warm up relatively quickly. Robert Russo hit super chat. Thank you, Robert. Most appreciated as always. Just wanted to give you the big thank you and a big hug to keep you warm.
Matthew Murphy on the chat board is saying, a longtime listener, first time commenter. Thank you for all that we do. Fun weather today. 5 minutes of heavy pea-sized hail at 2:30 p.m. in Greenport in Brooklyn. And again, 2:30 seemed to be the time frame, Joe, where just about everybody in the immediate tri-state area was getting hit in one way, shape, or form, either with hail, with wind, with heavy rain, lightning, thunder. That seemed to be the midpoint of the nasty weather. And as I mentioned at the onset, that was midway between what was being forecast by the NAM. At 4 o'clock, they said we would be getting hit, and the GFS, which had it coming in or racing in at 1 o'clock. So if you took a compromise, 2:30, there you go. right on target.
Also want to mention too, Steve LaPointe hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Steve. Simplicity weather from the Joes, and that's what we strive for here. We get a little technical, but that's I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. And then if you watch the show long enough, a lot of stuff starts to click in terms of how the atmosphere works. And speaking of which, we are going to see the next trough. Again, we talked about the north and the south phasing. WPC brings a pretty good amount of rain. Some of this, of course, is going to be convectively driven with thunderstorms in the area that we showed you the severe weather risk. But 3 inches or more for eastern Texas and into western and central Mississippi. Also, some heavy rains pushing up into southern and central Missouri on the order of 3 inches plus. In the east, for the system for Saturday night and into Sunday morning, it's looking like it'll be 3/4 of an inch to an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter, and that'll carry its way on up into New England. You see the 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch back in eastern Pennsylvania and up through the middle and upper Hudson Valley into upstate New York, which really could use it there because it's very dry. Also seeing rain up into the northern plains and western lakes, more precip, and a lot of this is going to be snow in the Rockies. Whoops, sorry, I got to switch over to the map. Thank you, Johnny, for telling me that because I switched back to Joe and I together. There you go. So now you can see it on the map here. And you see the precip in the Rockies, still more snow possible with the pattern that we're in, and rains in the west, some 1/4 to a 1/2 inch rain amounts even down into southernmost California, all the way down to San Diego. This is good because the rain was lacking during the winter time, and heavier rains up in northern California, the Sierra Nevadas, and then pushing on up into the Pacific Northwest. So the system for Saturday into Sunday, Joe, and I was taking a look at everything with respect to the medium and long range. That might be the last one that we'll deal with because I think much of next week may wind up being dry if this blocky pattern that I'm seeing setting up. We might get into a sweet spot again.
Like last week.
Yes.
Which would be nice.
Yeah, trying to figure out the temperatures though is a little bit difficult because there's still going to be some days I think where at least along the coast, the wind off the ocean may have a say in how high temperatures get, but as opposed to inland areas, which will probably have a much easier time of it as far as warming things up. Now I got the 12Z GFS up, so I might as well just take a look at this first before I switch, because we have to wait for the maps to load. But the wind tonight into tomorrow, the low is sitting up in eastern Canada. The gradient is fairly tight during the day tomorrow. If there were wind advisories going up, I think they would have put them up already. So we figured it probably stayed just below criteria, but it is going to be cold. And then there's still a bit breezy here on Friday. The high moves off the southeast coast and low pressure to the north. Saturday, on course for being the better of the 2 weekend days. Now, you can watch low pressure there in East Texas. You can see how the GFS is rather bullish with the precip shield for Friday night into Saturday morning, matching up with that area of risk from SPCs. And then as we go through Saturday, the big rain and thunderstorms that move across Alabama into Georgia. Looks like the GFS has been pretty consistent on the timing on this. So it looks like rain gets into southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania and points south during Saturday afternoon. We see the rain moving. Saturday morning it moves into the Carolinas. Saturday afternoon into Virginia. Saturday evening, southern and eastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey. Looks like it gets to New York City maybe around, say, 9 or 10 o'clock. And by Sunday morning, the lows at Atlantic City, and by Sunday afternoon, it's south of Montauk. So I'm thinking, Joe, that south and west of New York City should see some improvement later Sunday morning or early afternoon. And north and east of New York City into southern New England, it may take all afternoon. You have to just wait for the rain to pull out and then the clouds to pull out. So Saturday still looks like the better of the 2 days for most of our area.
And I agree. And it looks like the temperatures are going to be averaging probably below normal at least through the end of the week. Friday, still, I mean, not quite as cold as what we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Then we get into Saturday, and Saturday is probably more seasonal than anything else. And then on Sunday, it turns chilly again, but only because, again, Joe, we're going to have all those clouds associated with that developing system just off our shorelines. And then as that moves on out, as you just pointed out a few moments ago, a nice warm up for the early part of next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe even through all of next week. The only question will be that, whether or not we see any precipitation, maybe by later on next week. But yeah, a nice warm up, quite in contrast to what we're being dealt with right now with this
Right.
sudden drop. I mean, tomorrow morning, when you factor in the winds tomorrow morning, step outside, it's going to feel more like like late or mid February. A really chill filled morning tomorrow for all of those of you who, have to get on out and go somewhere in the early hours of the morning.
So we go from this wintry looking upper air that we have for Thursday morning. You see the trough in the eastern part of the United States, right in here. And then, of course, you've got this other big upper low in northwestern Canada. The flow from Canada is wide open and bringing down all that chilly air. I did notice, this is the 18Z run here. I am noticing some changes for next week that folks might like if it winds up verifying. So, well, let me take you through this. So, because the upper low, of course, lifts up into eastern Canada. The next one tries to come down. Now, here's your strong southern stream shortwave. That will be the trigger for severe weather. The northern part of that jet is swinging down as well. So this creates a phase or an attempt of a phase, and the trough kind of lifts up in a negative fashion here, Saturday night into Sunday morning. By the way, meanwhile, we've got another rather vigorous system in the west that's coming down from the Pacific Northwest and heading for California there. So that trough lifts up. And we talked yesterday about the fact that this upper low that forms in near Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. But there's some big differences, Joe, that are setting up across the North Atlantic. It's not quite as blocky as what was being indicated a few days ago. So the upper low, that instead of the upper low was forecast to drop southward, and now it just kind of sits there between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and really doesn't do anything. It just stays up there. So what that does is actually allows a rather strong ridge to build up the East Coast while you have deep troughing out to the west in the plains, and that's probably going to mean severe weather out there next week in the Central Plains. We'll see. We'll see what that means in terms of the specifics of what the model does. But in a setup like this with this strong ridge, it does suggest that not only will be dry, at least into Thursday, but we actually, I'm starting to wonder whether we may have, some places are going to have onshore flow issues, but we could warm up pretty nicely away from the coast with this. And then, of course, you get this weakening trough that brings maybe a cold front later next week. And just for laughs, after that, it is kind of blocky, but it's not, it's nothing that to me I would be too concerned about, because the ridge kind of pops right back up now that we're getting into early May. The ridge starts to pop back up in the eastern part of the United States and trough out in the west and fairly deep out in the west. So for those folks, winter ain't over yet, but some positive indications here with regards to the weather in the east.
Yeah, and hope springs eternal that we may have a nice stretch of fine, dry weather for next week. We'll just wait and see. And again, after what we go through these next couple of days, anything will feel a lot milder or a lot warmer. We certainly are going to be, down well below seasonal normals tomorrow and Friday, and then the slow climb back upward over the weekend and especially into next week. Next week, as you just pointed out, Joe, should be seasonably mild or milder than normal, and that'll feel real good compared to what we're experiencing right now.
So I'm running the new GFS, which I haven't seen. So obviously it's pretty consistent in the short range. You see the potential severe weather outbreak with that low for Friday and Saturday in the areas advertised. Surface low goes into the Ohio Valley and weakens. You have a coastal low that develops in eastern North Carolina, brings up the rain. The only thing is, Joe, I'm noticing on this run that it is a little bit slower with the low. So Sunday morning, the low is southeast of Atlantic City. Although the isobars bent back northwest, the low could certainly be a little bit closer to the coast. But it takes a little longer, it seems, to get out of the way. So that certainly solidifies, in my view, that the better day is going to be Saturday. And then next week, there's no real cold air behind this. So I'm just kind of looking at here. So Monday, we're sort of on the edge of a northerly flow left over from the low, moving out to the east. And then the high is right on the coast, and the isobars go southwest. For Wednesday and Thursday, there's no sign of a high building to the north because it's not nearly as blocky. So, I mean, if this is correct, I would say that Wednesday and Thursday of next week, we could see temperatures well up into the 70s inland, maybe some 80-degree temperatures popping up. Not impossible, as long as there's enough sun and the sea breeze behaves. And then an area of showers comes in sometime. Even Friday, this is right, because of the slowness and the strength of the ridge. Showers don't get here till late Friday night, and to Saturday morning on this run. So pretty interesting developments here with respect to next week. We'll see if the models continue on this path in subsequent runs.
Yeah, temperatures in the 70s to near 80 sound real good compared to, again, what we're going to be dealing with these next couple of days. And again, that's April, and we're now heading toward the home stretch for April next week, and before you know it, it'll be the month of May, and start thinking about Memorial Day and about the unofficial start of summer. Joe, it's this year has really whizzed on by. I mean, I can't, but it seems like only about a month ago that we were in the throes of that tremendous snowstorm that hit us at the beginning of February, and of course it's been more than a month. It's been quite a few months, but I just don't know. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think 2021 is really flying on by.
It is. That's because you and I are having a good time. That's why. By the way, take a look out west. Again, this is all in the long range, but if there's going to be troughing in the west, there is snow being indicated in the long range for May 3rd for Colorado. So our friend Ruth Lescote, who's on here from time to time and has been digging out from the recent snowfall, is not going to like the fact that he may not be done yet. And also, as I noted earlier, take a look here with this energy coming in at the very beginning of the month of May. There's a pretty substantial severe weather outbreak that shows up on the GFS. Again, this is later next week and the week after next. So obviously there's a long way to go here, but wouldn't be a shocker if it winds up playing out this way. That's where I would favor severe weather outbreaks further west. If the trough is going to go into the western part of the United States, and if we're going to have a ridge in the east, you're going to wind up having the severe weather outbreaks in the plains and maybe even up into parts of the upper Midwest, but they won't come to the East Coast, not with that pattern.
Yeah, all right. I accept that.
Okay. So since now we are back on full screen, Bill Rogers had a question here for you. The Lyrid meteor shower, and what is the difference between an asteroid, a meteor, and a meteorite?
An asteroid is a very large body. Anything, actually, if you've ever been to the Hayden Planetarium in New York, they have a couple of gigantic meteorites on the order of 14 to 34 tons, anywhere from 6 to 10 feet across. Those could actually be called asteroids in some ways. Generally speaking, any particle in space, which we would call a meteoroid, that manages to make it all the way down to the Earth's surface is a meteorite. And anything that I would say that's anything over, let's say 10 feet across, you can call that an asteroid, a king-sized meteorite or meteoroid. And the Lyrid meteor shower, not really all that great to write home about. I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning to look for it, only for two reasons. Number one, most of tonight, when it finally does clear, if it does clear, it's going to be lit up by a bright gibbous or three-quarter moon, and that's going to probably squelch the light of most of the meteors from the Lyrid shower, except for the very brightest ones. Your best view will be at like 4 or 5 in the morning, but by that time, dawn is about to break, and the Lyrid meteor shower only produces like 10 or 15 meteors per hour. Let's wait until August, when we have the famous Perseid shower. That will be a very good meteor shower to look for. They'll produce like 60 or 70 meteors per hour. That is a worthwhile meteor shower to look for. But the Lyrid meteor shower is one of the weaker displays. Not, again, really, I would say worth getting up for. But if you want to get up, if you don't have anything to do, you might want to get up tomorrow morning. Look, actually, Joe, there is something that many of the people on the chat board, and maybe even you, might want to get up early for on Friday morning. The launch of the next mission to the International Space Station, a crewed launch, 4 astronauts on board, will be taken up to the space station on a Falcon 9 rocket that has been created by SpaceX. And that launch will possibly be visible along much of the eastern seaboard. In fact, as the rocket gets high enough into the atmosphere, it will be illuminated by the sun. The contrail that it will leave behind will also be illuminated by the sun. And so it will leave in its wake a rather significant trail of light, which will stretch across the southern sky. So if you're up and about, the launch is at 5:49 a.m. Eastern time on Friday morning. Let's say about 5 or 8 minutes after liftoff, you take a look over toward the southern part of the sky, you just might see that rocket with that long trail behind it as it heads up into orbit to get ready to rendezvous with the International Space Station. That'll happen early on Saturday morning. That may be something for you to wake up to early on Friday morning.
Well, as long as the southern view, I got big mountains to my south, so as long as the mountains don't get in the way. But I'll make a note of it because I'm usually up before sunrise here. Because of where I am longitude wise, the sun doesn't rise until after 7 a.m. So
right,
and actually, because it has to get high enough above the mountain before I even see the sun, so that takes an extra hour or so. Meanwhile, go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you're I'm trying to think. You're not too far from Atlanta, right? Or
2 hours.
Well, if you make a fist and hold it out at arm's length, that's equivalent to about 10 degrees. So if you put your fist at the bottom of where the horizon is, if the top of the fist is higher than the mountains, then you'll have a chance at least of seeing the trail.
I'll have to go. I'll have to drive to Blue Ridge, where it's like Blue Ridge is it's near the higher elevation point there, so I'll have a better sight. The bigger mountains are to my west, and that go up to like 4,000 feet and up. So I'll have to drive south. I'll have to drive west to get a better view. Speaking of, by the way, west. Bill Uber and Johnny Quest pointing out, and I'm obliging here, we have a typhoon in the Pacific, of just about the equivalent of a strong Category 3 here, Typhoon Surigay. And I've got the track up on the map here, Joe. It looks like it's going to pass east of the Philippines by a close, it's going to be close, but it should be far enough offshore. And then it recurves east of Taiwan and Taipei and passes well south and east of Japan. And right now, as far as the, let me see, I thought I put up, yeah, here we go. So here's the satellite loop. It's got a very well-defined eye. It's got that nice circular, not quite the buzzsaw look, but getting relatively close. And with respect to the positioning here for this Typhoon Surigay, it's at, let's see, winds are 105 knots is what they're carrying. So that's a Category 3, 19.3 north, 124.8 west, moving 010 at 5 knots. So by miles, it's 349 nautical miles from Taipei. And I'm just trying to find, that's the only one here that's, I think, might be familiar to some. And from Manila, it is 356 miles from Manila in the Philippines. So the Western Pacific, which can have a tropical storm or a hurricane in any month, has got one now. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They've got one now.
Yeah. Yeah. For us, well, the Atlantic Basin, we usually have to wait until late July or early August before we even begin to see something that dynamic. I don't remember ever seeing a storm of that magnitude, let's say in June or May or even early July. But, that as you just mentioned, Joe, the Western Pacific, the waters out there are still quite warm through much of the year. And so you get that from time to time, even in the month of April.
Yep, exactly. And by the way, tropical weather outlooks start on May 15th this year. So that's 24 days from now, Joe, 24 days from now. So like you said.
That's not, but the season begins officially still on June 1st.
Yeah, they didn't change the season starting on June 1st. They were talking about the possibility of moving it up to the 15th. But the bureaucratic wheels in the weather world tend to run very slowly. Very, very slowly.
Very slowly.
Yes.
Well, it's not just us. It's the other. It's an international organization that has to decide. And if there are a lot of international opinions, then yeah, consensus will take its sweet time. And take a look since Vatican II in early 1960s. I think it was 1962, 63. They came to a decision. The Pope came to a decision saying, all right, if all of you can get together, then we'll have Easter in the second week of the second Sunday of April instead of having it move around because of lunar cycles. So take your choice, make a decision. And they've taken the better part of 60 years and they still haven't decided yet whether or not they're going to go in that direction.
Right. So are you ready for some Briller Jeopardy? The chairman actually did leave me one for yesterday and I forgot about it. So I also he sent me one for today, which we'll use for tomorrow, but we're still in the land, we're still doing top tens. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so today's top 10, and of course baseball rules apply. These 10 states have recorded a high temperature of at least 120 degrees.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. There are 10 states that have done that?
Yes.
120 degrees. All right. Okay. I'll bite here. Let's start off. I know California, Death Valley is one of those states.
Number one.
All right. Now we move to, I think, number 2, which would be Arizona.
That is correct. Number 2 is Arizona.
Okay. How about number 3? I'm going to try to get them in numerical order here. I would think number 3 is Nevada.
Nevada is number 5.
All right, but I know I'm in the general vicinity. How about New Mexico?
New Mexico is correct, number 6.
Okay, and Texas?
Texas is on the list at number 10.
Number 10. Huh. Well, 120 degrees?
120.
120 degrees.
Now, I don't know
Oh,
if there's any particular reason why the order is the way it is, because, you know, if it hit 120 degrees once, it's going to make the list, you know, anywhere in the state. And obviously a state like Texas is very large. So, I'm not sure if these are how these are ranked, or what is the parameter of the ranking. So, but anyway, be that as it may, you still haven't gotten one wrong yet.
How about Utah?
No, sorry, Utah is not on this list. Let me double check. No, Utah is not on this list.
How about Oklahoma?
Oklahoma comes in at number 9.
Okay. What about Missouri?
No, Missouri is not on the list. That's 2 strikes for you.
Well. Now we have to go to the deep south, but I think the Gulf of Mexico would modify the temperature. I could see 100 degrees. I just can't see places like Alabama or Mississippi or Florida making it to 120. I just
Right.
can't.
Well,
And I have no clue. I go inland. I don't know. Go into the Great Plains, South Dakota.
South Dakota is on the list. Yes, South Dakota is on the list.
Really?
Yes.
Amazing. South Dakota. Wyoming?
No, sadly, Wyoming did not make the top 10. So that is your 3rd error. But I'll extend
And I
it.
guess I'm out, right?
No, but go ahead, keep guessing. I'll help you now. Okay, so if not South Dakota, then
North Dakota?
that's correct.
The Bismarck, North Dakota. That's where the Raccoon National Cemetery
Right.
is.
The Land of Enchantment.
We did this the other day. The Land of Enchantment.
And you should remember that what state that is.
I should, shouldn't I?
Yes.
It's like concentration or whatever.
Right.
So what was it? Not Colorado.
No.
The Land of Enchantment. Rayo, where's your head?
Well, you already picked the state that's to its east and the state that's to its west.
Nebraska?
No. No, not to
The state to its east.
By the way, that you mentioned Nebraska.
Yeah.
Movie recommendation. Remind me after we're done with this. So go ahead. You mentioned the state to its west and the state to its east. I will.
Now I'm openly cheating here.
Okay,
I'm Googling Land of Enchantment.
Right.
New Mexico.
New Mexico. That is correct.
But didn't I say New Mexico before?
Oh, maybe you did.
I said New Mexico.
But so at least you now can remember that it's the Land of Enchantment. Okay. One of the more famous residents of this particular state is Miss Gulch.
Kansas.
Now this one surprised me. Okay, I would not have. Listen. If you were giving this to me, I would never guess this particular state. Arkansas.
Little Rock, Arkansas?
Well, I don't know where in
Is
Arkansas.
I mean, well, you know, Arkansas is a pretty interesting state. I think the record low temperature in Arkansas is something like 18 degrees below zero.
Right.
And you're saying that at least once in their history they hit 120.
Somebody got to 120.
That's an amazing. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think the good question would be, what state has the greatest range of temperature? And I will assure you that among the top 5, Arkansas has to be on that list.
Well, we know North Dakota and South Dakota are going to be on that list too, because they got the 120 on the top, and I'm sure their lows are like they've got their record lows are got to be down in the minus 40, plus range somewhere there.
Right.
So this was a little, Arkansas I never would have guessed. The chairman just hit super chat, and he's asking me if I predicted, because he asked me about predicting the number of days above the 90-degree mark for this coming summer. So I did give him a number. I'm saying 24.
Last year you went low, and we ended up going high, right?
Right. So I'm going to say 24.
Okay. I hope you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'd like to have another Garden of Eden summer like we had about 10 years ago, where it was amazingly comfortable right straight on through, and I think we didn't have a single heat wave. I don't even want to think about having, those long stretches of 5 and 6 and 8 days where the temperature and humidity are so very high, it's like impossible to step outside. We break a sweat as soon as you step outside.
Right. Keith James.
Did we go through the list?
Yeah, we're all done. Keith James points out that because you mentioned Nebraska, the states around Nebraska, all the 2 states to the north of Nebraska and the 2 states to the south of Nebraska have gone to 120, but it's never gone to 120 in the state of Nebraska.
And the chairman says Montana is first with the greatest difference between low and high. And I've been to Montana. I flew into Great Falls, Montana, when it was like 15 degrees below zero. Not something you want to do if you're not used to extremely cold weather. But anyway.
And just speaking of Nebraska, I just wanted to mention to everybody the other night on Turner Classic Movies, because this month is what they do it every year. Usually it's in February, but with everything being thrown off, the 31 days of Oscar, and they run Oscar-nominated movies, and they could be in any number of different categories: acting, directing, sometimes for special effects, whatever. But the other night, and I had never seen it, a 2013 movie called Nebraska. With Bruce Dern, his performance in that movie was mind-boggling. It was so good, and it's a very dark. It's shot in black and white. It's a dark comedy / drama. It's about it's about a Midwest old man who gets a letter from a magazine saying that he had won $1 million. He would win $1 million if his numbers match, like the Publishers Clearinghouse kind of thing. So he goes around town saying that he's won $1 million, and all the things that wind up happening because of him saying that. It's a really well done movie. It's very funny, and also very dramatic and very dark. So if you haven't seen it and you've got nothing to watch, Nebraska, it's on my recommended list.
And on the chat board, Craig Carlberg asked, does Alaska ever hit 120, let alone 100? And yes, the highest temperature in Alaska is 100 degrees on the nose in Fort Yukon on June 27, 1915. And by the way, the lowest temperature in Alaska is 80 degrees below zero Fahrenheit, 62.2 degrees below zero Celsius in Prospect Creek on January 23rd, 1971, and that was just 1 degree higher than the lowest temperature ever recorded in North America, and that was 81 below zero Fahrenheit in, I love the name of this town, Joe, Snag, Yukon, Canada.
Yes.
Snag!
Yes. Gotcha.
You used to walk around when you were in sixth grade. When you were in sixth grade, you used to walk around the schoolyard and hit somebody on the snag. You're it.
Yes. All right. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight was brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, the place to go to get your mulch to make your yard look like the best in the neighborhood. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in Suffolk County, Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island, 631-756-1125. They have the best prices in town, omnitruevalue.com. And brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. And as Joe mentioned, time is going by, so you know what? Before you know it, we'll be doing jingle bells around here. They're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, 631-957-5106, also in Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. The website is liholidaylighting.com. And both Omni and Wholesale Holiday Lighting are local businesses, and we heartily support the idea of you supporting your local businesses. So we'll see you tomorrow night, correct?
Where else am I going to go? I'll be here.
Okay.
You'll be there. I'll be here. You just make sure you're
here.
there.
The frog, Shane. Where's your Messiah now? Oh, good Lord. Chuck Cardillo. Oh, Chuck Cardillo hit Super Chat. I forgot to acknowledge Chuck. Thank you, Chuck. Steve LaPointe, Johnny Quest, Robert Russo, and the chairman all hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you very much indeed. And we will both see you tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.
Bill Rogers wants to know what do you mean by the frog? We'll wait until tomorrow night to explain
that.
No,
go ahead. The frog, Shane. Gee, courageous.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.